Greetings, DAPS Magic Makers. I'm Mr. DAPS, and I'm fresh back from the Walt Disney World Resort, where my computer just crashed, but that's awesome. It was a fantastic, 5 days, 6 days at the Walt Disney World Resort. While I was out there, I was able to say goodbye to Illuminations Reflections of Earth, say hello to Epcot Forever, check out the Epcot experience, go on the Disney Skyliner, say goodbye to the Muppets Present Great Moments in American History, which actually is having its final run probably in like an hour. Lots of different things got to experience, both in the parks and then in the resorts as well. Obviously went on the ferry, which doesn't really count for any of that, but it's always one of my favorite things to do there. But if you would like to participate, please in this chat in the YouTube page, leave comments, leave questions, and I will be happy to respond to them as I see them pop up, especially as soon as the computer works, because you know how they like to do that. Right as you start down, it freezes or whatever. So anyway, I flew out last Saturday, flew back late last night, got in at about midnight this morning. The big goal was to say goodbye to Illuminations Reflections of Earth. Let's move this so it doesn't move as much. This is our first one of these, so it could be a little bit interesting. I'm doing everything in the studio by myself, and we will see if this works. If you like it, let us know in the comments. If you don't like it, let us know what you'd like to see instead in the comments, and we will definitely do our best to accommodate. Anyway, so the trip started on, what was your absolute favorite part of the trip? Favorite part of the trip had to have, ooh, that's a good question. Beyond the ferry. My favorite part of the trip actually was probably partially Illuminations and Epcot Forever, but more of the time around those. I got to hang out with Mikey Really Likey for a bit while I was out there. I also met this guy when we were waiting for Illuminations Reflections of Earth named Russell, who when you sit there and wait 5 hours for a show, you make friends or you end up hating everybody around you. Thankfully, we ended up making friends. And so where we hung out on Illuminations the first night, we decided, hey, we should do this again the next night for Epcot Forever. So we got actually a better spot for Epcot Forever the next night, which was a lot of fun. And then we ended up meeting up again later in the week as well. And so my favorite part was actually new friends that I made on the trip. I also met a couple, or a family, I guess, that's from Iowa that we're now following each other on Instagram, and they come out they come out multiple times a year, and this is their big getaway, and they were having a blast with that. And so got to talk about, we just Disney geeked out stuff. As we were sitting there waiting to go on Haunted Mansion one day, I actually was waiting to go on Haunted Mansion for my Fast Pass, and then they saw my shirt, and I was wearing a Haunted Mansion Our Universe Hot Topic shirt from her universe, and that just led to conversations, which was a whole lot of fun. So the main purpose of the trip was to say goodbye to Illuminations, say hello to Epcot Forever with a few extra things thrown in here and there. And it really was a successful trip in that regard. So saying goodbye to Illuminations was an interesting thing because I actually, I was curious to see how busy it would be. So I went on Sunday night first just to kind of get a feel for how serious are people about saying goodbye to Epcot Forever. And they're pretty serious. So Sunday night, to get a great spot, you probably had to wait a couple hours. To get a decent spot, which is what I did, probably an hour, and I waited between the America Pavilion and Japan Pavilion and got a good spot, posted a video, was pretty happy with it. And then on Monday night, which was the final night, to get a good spot, people were camping out basically from the moment World Showcase opened. And that definitely was a little bit intimidating as you're walking around World Showcase at 11 o'clock and seeing people sitting there already, because it was 90 degrees out, it was humid, it was hot, and I was by myself, and I'm like, well, how the heck am I going to wait 9 hours for this show, or 10 hours at this point for the show, and then be able to go to the restroom, get more water, get food, all of those things that are part of waiting for a show. And so I basically kept hedging my bets. And finally I had lunch at like 1 or something. And I just kept circling World Showcase, and I'd do something each time I circled. And like, okay, well, I'm going to go see the China 360 show, Reflections of China. And so I did that, and then I was getting out. And then as the afternoon was progressing, I realized, like, probably around 4, I'm like, I just got to get a spot. So I got a spot that was basically between Norway and China, right on the front. It was a great spot. And that's where I met Russell. And it was amazing to me that by probably 5 or 5:30, it was already 3 or 4 levels deep all the way around the World Showcase Lagoon. By 8 o'clock, it was probably, I'm going to guess there was 10 levels deep of people behind us. And it was really fun to see the level of support, I guess you could say, that was showing up for the end of the show and for the people that make the show possible. And so, like, every time there would be a tech boat with all the techs on it go by, everybody was cheering, and that was a lot of fun. And then as the show got closer and closer, you know, they do their 30-minute announcement, and everybody goes crazy as all of the different different torches go off all the way around World Showcase Lagoon, and that was really fun as well. And then things continued to just happen as it got closer and closer. People get exciting, and then it starts raining. It actually had rained at like 5 o'clock, and we're like, oh good, it's over with, now we're okay. And then actually Russell went and got us ponchos, which I've never owned or worn a poncho before, I'm pretty sure. And so he went and got us ponchos the first time it rained. And then it came back, and it was like, I'm glad we got the ponchos, because it started really coming down right before the show started. And so we grabbed the ponchos. I had the poncho like hanging over the camera and the mic so that we could get a good video of it. And he had like plastic bags around his camera and had the poncho on. And I was trying to like protect my camera bag with the poncho. It actually made for a really funny and unique experience. And then the show started. It was raining at the beginning. About 3 minutes in, it stopped raining, and the rest of the show went on without hitch. And people, it was fun because people were really into it, as you would expect for the last show. And there were definite really highs, and then during the quiet, slower parts, it was much quieter than it often is. Like when I saw it on Sunday, like people were chattering all the way through, and it was kind of like, this is fun, you know, whatever. And then on Monday night, during the quiet parts, it was just silent. Like people weren't talking, you know, unless it was like a little kid, like, what's that? But it was really interesting, the difference just in 24 hours. And then obviously at the end, when it all concluded, everybody went crazy, and that was a beautiful moment as well. And then people just kind of stood around, like they didn't know what to do with themselves. And they're like, don't really want to leave to say goodbye and just walk away this from ever, but I don't really know what to do. And so people kind of just stood there and chatted about the show and how much they were going to miss it, and predictions for Epcot Forever, which was going to start the next day. And it was kind of this weird, melancholy experience. And I wouldn't say it was like I've seen other shows go away where people are just genuinely distraught, but this was kind of sad that it's over, intrigued about what's coming next, as opposed to being a definite, like, I'm very upset about this and I can't believe they're doing this to me, which I'm sure there were people like that, judging by what I'd seen online. But it really was more of a, like, I'm really sad to see this go. I'm really excited about the future of Epcot, at least in our area. There was a lot of sadness but hopefulness, and it was interesting too, just the amount of tears from people who've been coming to Walt Disney World for decades and seeing this show. You know, maybe not full on crying, but I can think of at least three that were around me that all had tears in their eyes at the end of the show, and it really was a beautiful thing. Next night was Epcot Forever, the very first performance of that, so the world premiere. We had really good spots. We kind of upgraded ourselves from where we were the first night, and we were closer to the center. Like if it's before you, like when you're entering World Showcase and you go left, there's the Joffrey's coffee stand. Go straight to the water from there, and that's where we were. And that was a really fun place to watch for it. We didn't have to wait quite as long. I think we got there at like 6, so it was only a 3-hour wait instead of a 5-hour wait, which was awesome. It wasn't quite as hot that night either. It was still warm, but it wasn't quite as like beating down on you, brutal. And there wasn't quite as much energy that night. Like it was still a lot of people waiting, a lot of people excited, but it was kind of cautious optimism. We had some like high schoolers around us that, like, oh, show, but it wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to see Epcot forever. But I didn't hear all this like, oh, they're going to mess this up kind of stuff either, which was good. And then at, I think it was still at 8:30, the cauldron still turned on automatically after the announcement. And all the announcements were made on Tuesday for Epcot Forever by a little kid voice, as opposed to the more traditional Jim Cummings reverberating deep voice that we were used to with Illuminations. And so right off from the first announcement of what was coming from the kid, you could already tell something was different. And then as the show started, it was the little kid with the kids choir, and it was cool because what they did with this is they took a bunch of really classic Epcot songs that have the weight of history on them, are going to be recognized probably by older generations more, and could very easily become almost like a museum, archaic, I guess is a good word, and not connect with younger people. And they were really smart in the aspect that instead of going archaic and classical and giving us kind of a very traditional approach to these songs, they gave a much more modern approach with kids singing, and I think it connected better with multi-generations that way. The fireworks were fireworks, they were fun. I will say, like, we get some really cool fireworks here at Disneyland, and I will say there weren't as many like awesome like specific types of bursts or whatever of fireworks, other than my favorite part, which, to answer your question, was my favorite part was actually the fireworks on the kites. And I did not imagine that the kites would be one of my favorite parts of this show when I arrived at Epcot on Tuesday. But it really ended up being to see those, I think there were 5 kites or something, getting towed around by jet skis, and they do go really fast. But to see them with sparklers coming out of them was something I just didn't expect to see, and really created a magical moment that I was super impressed with. And I like that they added one more verse of One Little Spark to kind of like bring everything together, which was interesting. I know the big controversial part for most people has been A Whole New World. I actually thought overall the concept of A Whole New World fit in really well. I thought it was maybe the way it was orchestrated and built into the song could have been smoother, but I personally enjoyed it, and when you think about it, like it is a whole new world. It's 4 whole new worlds that are coming to join World Showcase at Epcot, and so to me it seemed completely appropriate, and it really wasn't an Aladdin thing. It was a look at all of these worlds we're bringing to Epcot thing, and I thought that was a good way to kind of have multi-use of that song, because yes, we are going to have more Disney IPs coming into Epcot, and it seemed like this was a good way to kind of tease that a little bit, but also keep it in theme. And I'm really hoping that is how they continue to do things at Epcot, is tease it a little bit, keep it in theme. And with that perspective, as I was going around World Showcase and actually around everywhere at Epcot this trip, it was interesting to be thinking of like, the Grand Fiesta Tour with the 3 Caballeros. Like, everybody, I think, loves that attraction. Like, I love that attraction. In fact, I went in and filmed it because I was just like, this is such a fun experience, and it's vibrant, it's funny, it's got lots of life, it's good use of technology, good use of space, and I think they did a great job with it. I'm really getting, I'm not going to say completely won over, but I'm really starting to enjoy Frozen Ever After in the Norway pavilion, and I'm hoping Frozen 2 makes that Norway connection even stronger, because I didn't go on the attraction this time, but it had that feel of Norway. I've got a family member that's from Norway, so I grew up with the trolls and a lot of the lore of Norway, and they are actually connecting with a lot of that. And then when you go through the stores, so much of each land or each pavilion is the stuff that they sell also. And so it was interesting to see. It's like, yeah, this all is relatively consistent with what I grew up with Norway. And side note, I always think, hey, I'm going to buy one of those sweaters someday. And then I'm like, I live in California. I'm never going to need a sweater that strong and comfortable, even though I love them. They're soft. They look gorgeous. And I think they'd be fun to wear. I just don't know when I'd ever wear them. So anyway, as I was going around the World Showcase and seeing, Belle and Aurora in France, and seeing Alice and Mary Poppins in the UK, and realizing Mary Poppins is standing right in front of where her attraction will be, but it'll be the new Mary Poppins from Mary Poppins Returns, and then wondering if that means the character will change, or just, there's lots of different questions that are going to happen moving forward with Epcot. And the thing I think they're really making great efforts to show is they're not trying to make Epcot into the Magic Kingdom, but they are trying to bring a bit of that magic that Walt Disney, it's a continuation of his dreams and imagination, but they're really trying to bring some of those characters to help people relate to the vision of Epcot for the possibility of a better community that we all come together in. And it's always interesting to me, as I was thinking about this too, reading a couple of books. I'm reading one on Disneyland and one in Bob Iger's book as well, is how connected all of this really is. When you go back to Epcot is really just a new incarnation of It's a Small World on a completely different level, but it's the same themes, and you see these themes going through Walt Disney's life of always trying to make things better and always trying to have a better future than today, and a future of possibility and a future of improvement. And Epcot was really kind of that next step. And yes, the hope was to create a community like that, that was a city, and really what it's going to become is a community of people, of dreams and ideals as well. So really enjoyed Epcot Forever. Is it my favorite fireworks show of all time? No. Is it good? Yes. Is it a home run? Probably not. It's a double. Like, they did a good job. And it's going to be enjoyable for those who see it in the next however many months, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, maybe even 12. I was getting waffled answers when I was asking different people there about how long exactly it's going to last. I'm going to bet till next spring. The Epcot Experience, which is the preview center, I could go on for a whole hour on easily. I won't, because that's just too long, and we, if you really want me to, maybe I will the next time I do this. I'm going to try to do these weekly. We'll see when they happen. Let me know in the comments below when you'd like this to happen. But Epcot Experience was super cool. I think it gave us a preview of what the 360-degree screen will look like for the China Pavilion. With the preview video that it did, I put the whole thing up on our YouTube channel, so you can go over and check that out. My big takeaway really is there's a couple things, but Guardians of the Galaxy is Cosmic Rewind is going to feel very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, and it even looked like they might have used some animation of Rocket from that for the new attraction, and it's looking better and better in the park too. It's getting more and more like that big building is more and more unnoticeable. They did a good job painting it, and there's some still construction area where you really notice it, but it's really starting to blend in, and that's a good thing. One of the things that's not blending in yet that I'm sure will at some point is the Disney Skyliner, which opened this week, and that is awesome. The heat issue, no problem. We got stopped above for probably like 8 minutes, I want to say. You can see a video of that too. But we were on our way from Caribbean Beach, or I guess Riviera, to Epcot, and we got stuck, or stopped, I guess, about halfway there. And it really, like, it was warm, but it was no worse than it was outside, and you're in the shade. Like you felt protected a little bit, so it didn't feel quite as hot as is what I was experiencing when we were in Disney's Hollywood Studios. And there was constantly like a breeze going through, even when we weren't moving, and it didn't seem like the wind was blowing. I'll be curious on a really like still day if that remains to be true, but I was super impressed with it. I would say my only thing is if you don't like small spaces or heights, don't go on it. And if those are just kind of a mild worry for you, and you're a little bit worried about it, don't go on it on a windy day, because you definitely do a little bit of rocking back and forth, which was a little bit exciting. And but you kind of got used to it, and you're like, well, I guess we're okay. And I really enjoyed it. I think they're still figuring out some of the operational aspects of it. Just like buses, just like the monorail, just like the ferry. After, it's hard to get out of Magic Kingdom right after the fireworks. And just like that, if you're trying to get out of Epcot right after Epcot Forever now, expect to wait. Like, it eats up people, but it can only eat up so many people so quickly. So I don't know that it's the fastest way right at that very moment to get back to, if you're at any of the hotels that are connected. It might be, though, by the time you go and wait in a different line. But it definitely does get very crowded right after those big shows. And for the most part, I thought they did a fantastic job with it. It was an enjoyable experience. We had a long line, and the line just kept moving, so it didn't feel long on opening day when we went on it. So definitely enjoyed it, definitely endorse it. I look forward to going on it again, and I really want to stay at one of the resorts that it goes to, so that I can go back and forth to the parks on it, because I think that'd be fun too. Hopping on over to Magic Kingdom, I watched The Muppets Present Great Moments in American History multiple times this week. Few takeaways I had was, as the week progressed, more and more people showed up to cheer it on and give support. And it's kind of the sad part with all of this is, Disney's counting numbers all the times. And I wish like all of those people could have been there all the time, so the Muppets would have the numbers that would necessitate them staying. But I also recognize it didn't happen, and that's too late. I hope it's not the end of the Muppets in Disney theme parks in a live format. I guess Sweetums counts too in Muppet Vision 3D. But the Opera House on Main Street's undergoing refurbishment right now. So how cool would it be if all those Muppets got moved over to our coast and we got a new version of it on Main Street? Because that would be like the dream come true. But it's such a good, like, both of them are such good shows. They have a good historical lesson. They do it in a way that only the Muppets can do. That quirky humor, that zaniness, the mayhem, and they capture that in the script and in the telling of the stories. I liked that in the one version they have JJ in there, who's the town crier, who's also kind of making that human connection, and then the other one for the Declaration of Independence, he's not in, but both are incredibly well done. The music feels very much like a Muppet movie or a Muppet show, and it really is sad to see it go. And I watched it probably 6 or 8 times this week, just knowing it was going away. And while the videos are fun, nothing beats getting to see Kermit and the gang perform live. And they were really good puppeteers that were performing for this. And it really just was an enjoyable thing. And I'd love to have been there today to say goodbye on the last day, because I'm sure even more people were there to cheer them on. Like yesterday, I was surprised. I feel like yesterday the momentum was really growing. Like throughout the week, you could see more and more people showing, and there was the not casual, but there was a polite applause after things, and there was a few chuckles and laughs. And then like by yesterday, you could tell a lot of people that were really invested in it here had shown up, and so there was loud laughters, there was loud applause, and it was much more spirited than the rest of the week. And I really wish I'd filmed yesterday instead of the day before, but such is life, right? but it'll be missed. It was really good. It was a lot of fun. Other highlights at Magic Kingdom obviously are always People Mover, Carousel of Progress. Just getting to experience the Magic Kingdom that's slightly different than what we know at Disneyland. Some other highlights of the trip as I'm wrapping this up. Obviously, Animal Kingdom is always a blast. I got to go on Flight of Passage and Journey of the Na'vi, so I felt like I had a very successful run in that regard in terms of getting on attractions, and also did the safari, and I've hit a lot of things, so that was super solid and fun, although hot. Disney's Hollywood Studios is interesting to me as a Disneylander, because I did go into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and it was fun, and it was beautiful, and I thought I would take more pictures than I actually did, but it was just so darn hot that I kind of was like, okay, that was good. Let's go get a drink. I need to cool off. I need water. I'm dehydrating. And so we did. Like, we went in there and we spent some time in there. I would like to go again when I have more time and less things to cover, when I'm not spending 12 hours waiting for shows in Epcot. But I'd like to go again and explore even more, because where ours is really stretched out here at Disneyland, in Florida it was much more compact. And it was almost like you have a circle area of the Resistance camp, and then you have the Black Spar Outpost area. That's kind of another circle, and so that was slightly different, or quite a bit different actually. And then the paint job was a little bit different too, and like there was quirks and differences that you would notice if you're a regular at Disneyland, to be able to tell the difference. And it'd be an interesting thing. We did a video that's a tour of each, and we're going to put that as an article in the near future. With the different, just a different tour of each park. It was interesting also at Disney's Hollywood Studios. I didn't feel like I had a huge need to stay longer, which might be good for Disney, and maybe tourists are different. But there was a bit of a line for all the stuff in Toy Story Land, so I was like, well, I've done that, I'm okay. And I thought about going back and seeing Fantasmic, because I love the musical arrangement it's closer to our original Fantasmic. Ended up not doing that, and I instead went to Disney Springs. And it was just an interesting thing to me that I just didn't feel nearly as drawn as other trips as I normally have been to Disney's Hollywood Studios. Still am very much drawn to Epcot, which you would think after spending 2 full days there, I'd be like, all right, done with Epcot. But I still ended up going back there. I think every day on the trip I spent some time at Epcot. Went on Spaceship Earth a zillion times, went and visited Figment and Journey into Imagination a bunch of times, went on the land. I think I hit every attraction pretty much at Epcot. No, I didn't hit Test Track or Mission Space, but that's why we do it next time, right? Anyway, there is a brief, not so brief, follow-up to my trip to Walt Disney World. If you have questions, let me know in the comments, and I will try to hit them on the next time we have a DAPS Magic Maker live. And we will try to do this probably weekly, bi-weekly, something like that. I want to get a schedule of a good time to do this for you guys. Thank you for your support. You're really giving us the possibility to do more videos like this and more videos like we shot in Florida. And there's a ton still coming up on the channel. So stay tuned. And for now, I'm going to say goodbye, and we will see you next time.